Chairs No Waiting, episode number 678, Floyd the Barber. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you each week by the folks over at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Drop by over at Weavers and check out the Loaded Goat t-shirts. There's all kinds of other Loaded Goat items as well, but they got t-shirts, stickers. Go and check out the Loaded Goat section over at Weavers. I think you'll enjoy it. I love the design of the goat eating the dynamite. And while you're over there, you might want to get the Mayberry Travel Guide by Randy Turner. It's a great book if you're thinking about heading to Mount Airy or some other places that are related to the Andy Griffith Show. Check out the Mayberry Travel Guide, all at Weaver's Department Store. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners like you. The executive producer of episode number 687 is Mark Copeland. So, Mark, thank you for supporting the podcast, and thank you for being here with me. It's always a lot of fun. We're gonna be talking about Floyd the Barber tonight, and after we finish that, we'll play some trivia. This week we don't have a report from returning to Mayberry because Spirit Walker wasn't able to finish it up in time, but everything's fine with him. It's just he couldn't get it finished this week, so we'll have a report next week for something for you guys to look forward to. But I do believe I'll be able to handle filling the time because, as I said, the topic tonight is Floyd the Barber. Floyd the Barber. Now, all of us probably think we know who Floyd the Barber is and everything. So, I'm sure that's probably mostly true because we all remember Howard McNear as Floyd the Barber. Of course, I'm kind of partial to that version because that's the version of Floyd the Barber that I do as a tribute at Mayberry events all over the place, and in the Mayberry Man movie and on the Mayberry Effect documentary. That was the version of Floyd that I play. But there is another version of Floyd that you might or might not remember. So let's start talking about this and get into the details. And I'll give you some information that I think you're going to enjoy too. That's not from the actual show, but something that we made up. So I'll tell you. All right, so the character of Floyd the Barber was originally played by the actor Walter Baldwin. Now, do y'all remember him? He was the first Floyd. He was the very first Floyd. He portrayed him in the episode called Stranger in Town that was first shown on December the 26th, 1960. Now, this was the 12th episode that aired of the Andy Griffith Show. So it was in season 1, episode 12, aired. The aired order. Okay. So the episodes now tend to be shown in the order they were filmed, not in the order they were actually aired. Okay. So this is interesting. So if you're watching them, you might not realize this as we go through here, but it was the 12th episode of the Andy Griffith Show, Stranger in Town. That's where we met Floyd the Barber for the first time. And the character was played by Walter Baldwin. Now, Floyd's last name is neither mentioned nor shown during that episode. The Floyd's Barber Shop sign on the window is painted kind of on the lower left-hand corner of the front window of the barber shop. So Walter Baldwin, little information about him. He was born on January the 2nd, 1889, and he passed away January 27th, 1977. He was 88 years old when he passed away. So Walter Baldwin Jr. was a very active actor, character actor, whose career spanned 5 decades, 150 film and television roles, and numerous stage performances. He was born in Lima, Ohio, from a theatrical family and served in the First World War. I didn't know that. He's probably best known for playing the father of a disabled sailor in a movie called The Best Years of Our Lives. According to those involved in producing the Andy Griffith Show, Baldwin, his portrayal of Floyd the Barber was not what they had in mind. He was released from the part, and the veteran actor Howard McNear was given the role of Mayberry's friendly and eccentric barber. So you know Howard McNear. He's obviously, we all know who he is. Okay. Now there's some reports that say that Mr. Baldwin was signed to a contract to be in a movie, and that was why he had left the Andy Griffith Show. But looking into it, I looked into his IMDb filmography. There doesn't appear to be any movie roles that Baldwin was involved in the 1960-1961 time frame. So we'll go with his being released because he just wasn't what the series creators were looking for. So his role as Floyd, which I actually thought he did pretty well. I didn't think it was too bad. I mean, obviously I'm prejudiced toward my Floyd, Howard McNear, but I thought he did pretty well. And some of the lines that he said, this is the very first line from the show of him talking about if he was in Washington, he'd do things a little different. Let's hear this.
Yes, sir. I'd do things a lot different if I was running things down in Washington. I would. A lot different. I got a pretty good idea of what I'd do if I was president. You know what I'd do if I was president?
Mr. President, is it all right if I scratch my nose?
I'll tell you what I'd do if I was president. For one thing, I'd move my office out of the White House. A man can't work and live in the same place. Floyd, I tried living right here back of the shop once. But it was no good. The old lady yammering on the phone, cooking smells coming out of the walls. It was bad for business.
Floyd, you ain't getting them sideburns too short, are you?
Now just suppose that I'm the president, and I'm having a meeting with the prime minister, or maybe one of them kings from the old country. And my old lady, she comes busting in, she says, Floyd, what you want for supper? Pork roast or hog jowl?
He's got the left one a little short, Barney. This one ain't short, the right one's too long. Floyd, if you'd stay out of Washington and stick to your barber, and I might get a better haircut. Well, what do you do with my sideburns?
So that's kind of the opening scene that you start off that particular episode, The Stranger in Town, or Stranger in Town. It's not The Stranger, with Floyd. Now that was Walter Baldwin as Floyd the Barber. And I think those lines were very funny. I thought he delivered them pretty well. I didn't have any issue with that. Now, of course, Andy had walked in and Barney said about his sideburns. So let's hear this.
Oh, Andy, you tell me how these sideburns look to you.
What sideburn?
Doggone, I knew it. You always do this. You're clipper happy.
So Floyd, he didn't do that. So here's the next line. I just love these lines, so I hope you're enjoying it.
What are you fussing about?
My sideburns, where are they? Are they on the side or are they on the top?
Well, neither place. They're right here on the floor.
Boy, I told you. I said I just wanted to trim, and you clipped the daylights out of me, for heaven's sakes.
So Barney's all on Floyd about this. And, even when I'm doing Floyd, Howard McNear version of Floyd, I still respond to some of these things. So then, remember Andy tried to fix the sideburns. And he asked Floyd's opinion of, hey, how do they look now, Floyd? Because he had gotten Floyd to go sit down over in the chairs over on the side, and Andy was working on Barney's hair.
Now, Floyd, how's that look to you? Is he still in the chair?
There, now you know. He's blind as an owl.
I don't cut from here. I cut from there.
So there's a lot of really good lines in this particular one. And Walter Baldwin, he did fine. But he just wasn't what they were really looking for the character of Floyd. Something about it just didn't work out. But this is another good line where Barney's still complaining about his haircut.
Next time I want a haircut, I'm going to stick my head in a pencil sharpener.
Sir, and it'll fit, too.
Oh,
Yes, sir, and it'll fit, too. And so Barney, his final little barb to Floyd was this.
Here you are, Floyd. Go buy a barber book.
So this is Walter Baldwin. All right. So that's him. So as I already stated, Howard McNear took over the role of Floyd. And of course, we all know Howard McNear is the Floyd, in my opinion. He took over the role of Floyd and truly made it his own, beginning in the 13th aired episode of the Andy Griffith Show called Mayberry Goes to Hollywood. Now that episode, the 13th episode of the Andy Griffith Show, it aired on January the 2nd, 1961. Okay, that just happens to be Walter Baldwin's birthday because he was born on January 2nd. So he got replaced by Howard McNear, and then the first episode Howard was shown on Walter's birthday. So I feel kind of bad for Walter. Anyway, that was when it was shown, and it was only 1 week after Walter Baldwin's episode Stranger in Town had been on. So Walter's episode Stranger in Town was on December the 26th, 1960, and then Howard McNear's first appearance was on January the 2nd, 1961. So it was the very next week. So it was episode 12 and 13. Now, while that sounds bad, it should be noted that Baldwin's episode number 12, it was actually filmed 10th. So it was the 10th episode filmed. So there was actually a little more separation between his departure and McNear arriving on set to begin filming the Mayberry Goes to Hollywood. It wasn't really the very next week from a filming perspective, but it was aired the very next week. So there you go. So that's a little trivia there for you. In Mayberry Goes to Hollywood, we are told that the barber's last name is Colby. That's what we see, right? So in that particular episode, there's they show the Colby's tonsorial parlor. I'll talk about that a little later, but that's where we find out his name's Colby. Now, what actually happens? Well, let me read what I've done. So we've retconned this. Retcon means we have tried to fix the continuity errors, right? And to help resolve the last name issues. And I'll discuss that a little bit as we go along. But Mr. Harmon, in the movie director that's in the Mayberry Goes to Hollywood, he calls Floyd Mr. Colby. He says, "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Colby," as they're walking away. Now, that's as Andy and he walk away to tour the town, and after they've stopped to talk to Floyd for a few minutes. The name, as I said, Colby's tonsorial parlor, shows up on the windows in a big, large design in the upper front of the windows of the barbershop. And after all the Mayberry hysteria is over, the Colby design is gone and the barbershop is back to normal, with Floyd's barbershop back where it should be. All right. So Howard McNear, he played Floyd the Barber in 80 episodes of the Andy Griffith Show, working his way into our hearts and making us smile, at least making me smile. His last episode aired in the final episode of season 7 on April 10th, 1967. It was called Floyds Contest, and it was the 219th aired episode of the series, seeing Floyd win a top prize in a promotional contest that Goober was running at the gas station. And you'll remember that the printers made a mistake that resulted in Floyd believing he had won $200. $200. Yeah, he'd won $200. And that was a mistake. But Floyd demanded satisfaction because Goober said that was supposed to be the total amount I was giving out, and they made a prize of that number. And so Goober couldn't pay. So Andy had to jail Goober for fraud. And of course, as soon as Floyd sees that what was happening, he demands that his friend be released, and he gets out of jail. So Goober's all right there. All right, so the Lawson family. So it's Floyd Lawson, by the way. So it's not Colby. We were told it's Colby in that episode, Mayberry Goes to Hollywood, and from then on, it was always Floyd Lawson, right? So the Lawson family, he had a wife, Floyd did, at the beginning of the series, and her name was Melba, though we never saw her on the show at all. And Melba had a big stick, if you'll think about it. She had a big stick that she used to prop open the cellar door. We heard Floyd talking about that in the episode where the farmer and his wife were having the baby, and had to come down. So that was Quiet Sam. Is that right? Quiet Sam. Yeah. So that episode of the cellar door. And at some point between season 1 and season 3, because that was in season 1 when that was happening, In season 3, Mrs. Lawson passed away and Floyd became a widower. Because in the 8th episode of season 3, it's called Floyd the Gay Deceiver. Well, that's when Miss Grayson came to town and he'd been riding to the Lonely Hearts Club. And you remember that whole story. So we know somewhere between season 1 and season 3, Floyd's wife passed away, Floyd Lawson's. He has 2 sons, Randall, who we see in the episode called Those Gossiping Men. That's the one where the shoe salesman came to town and they thought he was a big executive of TV. And he has another son named Norman that we never see, but we hear Floyd talking about playing baseball, where it's, could it be your boy's just not a very good baseball player? Remember that one? So he has 2 sons. We always kind of thought it was the same boy, but because we didn't realize he ever said his name. But Norman played, his son Randall was the one that played the saxophone. Okay. But people always thought it was just Norman because Norman was the name we'd always hear. So some fans thought it was Norman that played the saxophone in the episode, Those Gossiping Men. But if you listen really carefully in that episode, you'll hear Floyd say, "Hear that, Randall?" And it could be Wendell, but I think it's Randall. So when you listen really close, you can try to hear. But so his name was Randall, and Norman was the one to play baseball. And Floyd also had a nephew that you all know, Warren Ferguson, who came and replaced Deputy Fife as the deputy of Mayberry when Don Knotts actually left the series. All right. So that's who Floyd is. And of course, we all know, as I said, Howard McNear is our Floyd, I guess. He's always been the Floyd that I always think of. Now, I'm going to give you a little insight because several years ago, Norm Schultz and I were at Mayberry Days together. So Norm Schultz dressed up as Floyd #1. Okay, so he was the first Floyd as a tribute artist during Mayberry Days back in 2018. I think that was the first year he did it. And we had to come up with an entire backstory to try to reconcile some of the things we've been talking about, because his name was Colby. At least that was the name of Colby's Tonsorial Parlor. The director actually called him Mr. Colby. All right, so here's what we came up with. So Floyd Colby and Floyd Lawson. So here's our theory, and this is what we go with as our backstory when we're talking to each other as the 2 characters from the show. So the first Floyd, Walter Baldwin, his name was Floyd Colby. And of course, Floyd Lawson is Howard McNear. That's what our theory is. So here's the reason. Colby and Lawson were partners at Floyd's Barbershop, but Colby was the majority partner. Okay. That's why in Mayberry Goes to Hollywood, when the big time movie director came to town, the barbershop was named Colby's Tonsorial Parlor. Mr. Harmon addressed Floyd Lawson as Mr. Colby, and neither Andy nor Lawson corrected him because they didn't want to embarrass the director. Okay. So he was seeing some of the stuff. He didn't. So that's our theory. So even though he said Mr. Colby, Floyd Lawson was who he's actually talking to. Now, and I have seen that happen before when people get me confused with somebody else. Depending on who they are and the situation, I don't correct them. I just let them go. So that's what we're saying happened, that Floyd Lawson didn't correct Mr. Harmon when he called him Mr. Colby. Okay. All right. So Floyd, and back then, by the way, it was Floyd's Barbershop, plural, because they were partners. It was Floyd's without an apostrophe. So it was 2 Floyd's Barbershop. All right. So Colby and Lawson worked on alternating days of the week. And toward the end of the time at the barbershop, Colby only worked 1 or 2 days a week. That's why we only saw him one time on the Andy Griffith Show, because he was ready to retire and he was moving along. But he and Floyd Lawson didn't work the same day. So Floyd Colby worked some days and Floyd Lawson worked others. All right. So Colby was the one who convinced Floyd Lawson to go into barbering It encouraged Lawson to improve his skills by catching cats in the alley behind the barbershop after his time in barber college. So remember him talking about being a great cat barber? Well, it was Floyd Colby that encouraged Floyd to learn to cut hair better by catching cats. Both Floyds were present when the case of the punch of the nose happened. So both Goober and Colby were there when Lawson punched Foley. Colby was, however, in the back room at the time, so he didn't see the incident. Colby retired very shortly after 1961 and sold his portion of the barbershop to Floyd Lawson and moved out of town following his retirement. That's why we didn't see him anymore. Floyd Lawson renamed the barbershop Floyd's Barbershop, adding the apostrophe and changing it from singular to plural. So that is why it is Floyd's Barbershop in both cases, and that's why we have Floyd Lawson and Floyd Colby, and that makes the story fit together. So there you go. That's our theory, and I don't know why that won't work. And that's the backstory we use when Norm Schultz, who's doing Floyd Colby, and myself doing Floyd Lawson are together. And that gives us, we can have all kinds of conversations because we have a great, we have that whole backstory together. Now, again, that is not in an episode. That is nowhere except right here on the podcast. Plus, you can go and find out all that information if you head over to Mayberry Community. If you go over to the Mayberry Community website, I posted a thing over there about Floyd Colby and Floyd Lawson history. And you can go and read it, and that information I just gave you is there. So you can go and kind of read the backstory that I just delivered there at Mayberry Community. Now, if you don't know about Mayberry Community, let me give you a little publicity here. The Mayberry Community is a Facebook-like website where you can go and meet with just fans from the Andy Griffith Show. And there's conversations going on over there all the time. It's only Mayberry, and only Mayberry fans are part of the group. So you can go and join up. It doesn't cost you anything. You can donate to it and help keep it going, but you don't have to. It's called imayberrycommunity.com, and you can go and check it out, and you'll find that article I just mentioned there as well. So go and check it out and see if that's something you might enjoy. Okay. So again, the story, the history, the retcon is what it's called, of Floyd Colby and Floyd Lawson is something, again, that I just made up, that Norm and I use when we're going through there, but I think it makes sense and it fits with what we know from the Andy Griffith Show. There you go. All right. So that is all I have as far as that goes tonight. I do have a few, clips of Floyd, my Floyd, that I'll play a few sound bites here. Here's one.
Push your mile, too.
Well, you know what Teddy Roosevelt said, speak softly and carry a big stick.
Oh, I thought Calvin Coolidge said that.
No, Floyd, Calvin Coolidge didn't say everything.
Oh, I know what Calvin Coolidge said. I do not choose to run.
Well, yeah, he said that.
I knew he had to say something or he never got to be president. Now, you're sure Teddy Roosevelt said that speak softly and carry a big stick?
Yeah, he said that.
Yeah. Well, he had the right idea, too. Come in handy in a gang fight. Just swing it around. The fellow's bound to hit something.
Well, Floyd.
Yeah, I'd give him one, all right. Knotty pine, too. Hard as rock.
So that's Floyd. And here's another one I have to love.
I'll see you after council meeting and give you a full report.
Wait a minute, Eddie. Just a second. There you are.
Much obliged.
Every head a walking testimony.
Every head walking testimony. Yeah, that's true. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good line. Oh, and of course this one. I'm really partial to this quote.
Good chair, and I got the magazines to swing it.
Dude, chair, and I got the magazines to swing it. Oh yeah.
Howdy, Floyd.
92.
It feels it.
I just looked at the thermometer over the door. You know what it is?
92.
92. It's like an oven inside. Hot? Oh, it is hot.
Well, as Mark Twain said, everybody complains about the weather, but nobody does anything about it.
He say that?
Mm-hmm.
I thought Calvin Coolidge said that.
No, Floyd. Calvin Coolidge didn't say that.
What'd Calvin Coolidge say?
I don't know.
You sure Mark Twain didn't get that from Calvin Coolidge?
No, Floyd. Mark Twain lived before Calvin Coolidge.
Oh, he couldn't have got it from no. But it's hot. Oh.
I love that whole scene. That is so, wow. That is just so fun. So there's Floyd. There's Floyd in the nutshell. So now you've gotten what was it? Paul Harvey. I said the rest of the story. So there you go. Maybe I should have called the podcast that tonight. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed all that information. And now we're going to play a little bit of trivia for a little while and just have some fun there as well. So pull out your pencil and figure out what your answers are. So let's get some background music going. All right. Let's play some trivia. Trivia time. Pull out your pen. Here we go. True or false? Mayberry had a stoplight. True or false? Mayberry had a stoplight. True or false? Okay, I'm going to give it to you. The answer is Mayberry had a spotlight. That's true. He did. Yes, he did. They did have a spotlight. We never saw, not a spotlight, a stoplight. We never saw that, did we? Around here, we call them red lights, but I guess it's a traffic signal. All right, so let's see. Next one, number 2. Name one of the portraits in Miss Crump's classroom. Oh, you got some options here. This is one of you got to name one of them, but there are 2 options. Name one of the portraits in Miss Crump's classroom. Name one of the portraits in Miss Crump's classroom. I don't know if I would have got this. So here comes the answer. Name one of the portraits in Miss Crump's classroom. Now, you had a choice. You could have got them both, but the answers are George Washington or Abraham Lincoln. And not Calvin Coolidge. It's not Calvin Coolidge. Oh, how soon they forget. All right, so it wasn't Calvin Coolidge. All right, number 3. Who brought his Wild West show to Mayberry? Who brought his Wild West show to Mayberry? This is a little hard. This one's probably a little hard for a lot of you guys. All right. Who brought his Wild West show to Mayberry? The answer is, who brought his Wild West show to Mayberry? Fred Gibson. Fred Gibson is who brought it. All right, number 4. Gibson's Wild West show featured the great nephew of who? Was it Bill Hickok, Jesse James, Wyatt Earp, or Buffalo Bill? Gibson's Wild West show featured the great nephew of who? Bill Hickok, Jesse James, Wyatt Earp, or Buffalo Bill? All right. So the answer is Gibson's Wild West show featured the great nephew of Wyatt Earp. Wyatt Earp was Clarence. Clarence Earp. Remember? There you go. Besmirk the name of Earp. Is that what it was he said? All right, so here we go. Number 5. Now, this is true or false once again. The drugstore is closed on Sunday. True or false? The drugstore is closed on Sunday. True or false? Okay. Last chance is true or false, so you got to get this one way or the other. The drugstore is closed on Sunday. The answer is that's false. It is false. That's right, because they were going to, I'm going to go down to the drugstore and get a bottle of pop. Yeah, so it was on Sunday. It was Sunday. It was open. All right. Who asked? This is number 6. Who asked? This is really hard to do. Who asked, how do you do, Mrs. Wiley? Who asked, how do you do, Mrs. Wiley? That's very hard for me to do. All right. Who asked, how do you do, Mrs. Wiley? All right. So I'm going to give you the answer because I can't handle it. It is almost impossible to read these and not try to read them like this. Okay. So here's the last read. Who asked, how do you do, Mrs. Wiley? That's right. Ernest T. Bass. I mean, that was really hard not to read that the first time. Who asked, how do you do, Mrs. Wiley? I think that would have given it away. All right. Number 7. Name a female reporter who wrote an undercover story on Andy. This is kind of hard. Back Bay, Boston. How do you do, Mrs. Wiley? All right. Name the female reporter who wrote an undercover story on Andy. Last chance. Name the female reporter who wrote an undercover story on Andy. Her name was Mrs. Boswell, Jean Boswell. Jean Boswell. That was her name. How do you do, Mrs. Wiley? You're talking through your nose. Yeah, no, do that on purpose so I can talk while I eat. Sorry, it got me going. All right, number 8. Who gave out 14 traffic tickets in one day? Who gave out 14 traffic tickets in one day? Was it Andy, Barney, Goober, or Warren? Who gave out 14 traffic tickets in one day? I didn't know this one. All right, this is our number 8. Who gave out 14 traffic tickets in one day? Was it Andy, Barney, Goober, or Warren? The answer is, and folks in the chat room are getting it, looks like the answer is Goober. Goober did that. Goober did it. So we got 2 more questions. All right, let's do the true or false one. True or false? Opie gave Helen a handkerchief as a gift. True or false? Opie gave Helen a handkerchief for a gift. True or false? Final read. It's true or false. So you only got a 50-50 chance. Opie gave Helen a handkerchief as a gift. The answer is false. It was false. That is false. And number 10, if you don't get this, you need to go back to episode 1 and start listening to the podcast again or watching the episodes. Okay, here we go. There's pressure. I'm putting pressure on you. The city of Mayberry is located in what state? I don't feel like I even need to read that again, but I'm going to read it. All right. The city of Mayberry is located in what state? All right. Last chance. Last chance. If you didn't get this already, I'm sorry. If you did, I'm sorry I'm dragging it out. The city of Mayberry is located in what state? Mayberry, North Carolina. It's Mayberry, North Carolina. I'm pretty sure all of you got that right. All right. So there we go. There's our 10 questions. How did you do? How did you do with your Mayberry trivia? I hope you had fun doing it. These are all just for fun. We've not been doing them, the really hard ones. I've been trying to give you stuff that's kind of fun. There's going to be some trivia in Granville, Tennessee on April the 9th, 2022. If you'd like to come and join us in Granville, Tennessee, go to granvilletn.com and get all the information there. There's a Mayberry event. We're going to have a Barney and a Floyd and an Otis and an Andalina and a Briscoe, and we're all going to be there. Plus, you're going to have Johnny Paul Jason himself, Keith Thibodeau, Little Ricky from I Love Lucy, and you're going to have Lucy and a Desi impersonator or tribute artist there as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. Granville, Tennessee. I invite you to come and see us. It should be a lot of fun. Folks, it is always a great time to be here in Mayberry with you. I enjoy hearing from you. You can give me a call at 888-684-8415. You can drop by the twochairsnowaiting.com website, leave a message there, or email me at floyd@imayberry.com. Love to hear from you. Thanks for being here with me. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I hope you found out a little bit about Floyd that you might not have known, and maybe you didn't know a lot of stuff about Floyd Colby, Floyd number one, coming into this episode. So I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys next time right here on Two Chairs.